Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. Hope you're doing well. So this is a bit of a warning to all of you silver stackers out there. The paradigm in the silver market just shifted in a very significant way, and we haven't seen this reflected in the price action of silver yet, but big changes are afoot, and a lot of this has to do with what Russia just announced regarding silver, and this represents a major change in how the world views this precious metal. So let's get to it. Did you know SD Bullion is giving away a monster box of 2024 Tree of Life silver coins? Sign up today at sdbullion.com/sweepstakes. Okay, so the big change in silver that we just witnessed is that Russia has announced that their state fund is going to begin acquiring silver. So they've been buying gold. We know that all the BRICS nations have been loading up on gold for years now in an accelerated pace following 2022 with the economic warfare and the sanctions. You know, gold is one of these assets that you can hold in reserve. You can take possession of it. It doesn't have the counterparty risk. It doesn't put you at risk of having your assets frozen the way that Russia's dollar and euro denominated assets were frozen following their invasion of Ukraine. But this is the first time that Russia has begun buying silver in their state fund. So according to the Jerusalem Post, they're going to be buying 51.5 billion rubles worth of precious metals next year for their state fund. And it's not just silver, it's also platinum and palladium and some precious stones, a variety of hard assets. I mean, basically they're diversifying the metals that their state fund holds. Why are they doing that now? Well, there's a lot of reasons you can speculate. Maybe it's because gold has simply gotten too expensive. Maybe it's because Russia understands that silver is really a monetary metal. I mean, that is the big paradigm shift here, is that silver, while for most of human history has been viewed as money, it's been used as money, it's been coined, it's been held in reserve. For most of history, silver was valued relative to gold at a much higher level than it is today. For centuries there, the world sort of operated on a 16 or 15 to 1 ratio of silver to gold in a de facto bimetallic system. However, in recent years, silver has become nothing really but an industrial metal, and industrial consumption of silver has certainly accelerated, so much so that now above ground supplies of silver are actually less than that of gold, because yes, more silver gets pulled out of the ground than gold, more of it exists in the crust of the earth than gold, but it also gets consumed. You know, pretty much all of the gold that has ever been extracted and mined from the earth still exists above ground in one form or another, whether it be jewelry, bars, involved in art or something like that. It's recoverable. Whereas a lot of the silver gets put into solar panels, it gets put into electronics, and it ends up in landfills in a completely unrecoverable form. And that's just sort of how silver has been viewed, as like the stuff that you use in a cell phone or a medical device or whatever. I mean, silver's used in thousands of applications, but then you throw it away. And the price kind of reflects that. Silver is about $31 an ounce at the time I'm recording this video. It's hard to name a more undervalued asset. Maybe platinum might be in the running there, but platinum doesn't really have the history that silver does as a monetary metal. And that's what this shift represents, right? Why is Russia buying silver? Well, it's probably because they're viewing it as a monetary asset. It's very interesting that this announcement from the Russian state fund that they're going to be buying silver was about a month before the annual BRICS summit, which is being held in Russia. Russia is chairing the BRICS summit this year, and on the agenda is going to be new financial institutions, maybe a new currency unit, which is rumored to be pegged to gold. And a month before this meeting, they start buying silver for the first time. And what this represents is that the world may be viewing silver once again as a monetary asset. Now, the fact that silver was demonetized was almost kind of an accident of history. It actually had to do with Isaac Newton, who was running the Bank of England at one point, and he changed the artificial peg to silver. He didn't set it right, so what ended up happening was all of the silver basically flowed out of England over the course of the 18th century, and that put England on basically a de facto gold standard. And then the British Empire, being the largest in the world, over the course of the next 100 years or so, by the mid-19th century, all of the major European powers ditched their bimetallic standards and adopted a gold standard. And then the US followed suit as well. In 1873, the Coinage Act of 1873 redefined the dollar as just gold, as being on a gold standard. It omitted any reference to silver. This is known as the crime of 1873, and it was the demonetization of silver. Now, the reason that we still had silver in our coinage, we've got these silver dollars you can see from after that date, had a lot to do with concessions that were made to silver miners in the U.S. We still included silver in our currency, but officially it was demonetized. And now, this is almost 2 centuries later, following the demonetization of silver. Now you have got Russia, for the first time, buying up silver as what appears to be a reserve monetary asset. Now, 51.5 billion rubles is not very much. I think that comes out to about 500 million US dollars, give or take. And not all of that is going towards silver, by the way. This is, buying a variety of precious metals. Like I mentioned, they're also buying platinum and palladium. And, all of that is not going towards silver. And so it's probably not going to be enough to move the needle in any significant way on the silver price. But, it's not entirely insignificant. Of course, keep in mind that the entire annual production worldwide of silver is only worth about $31 billion, right? We mine and recycle about 1 billion ounces of silver every year, and at $31 an ounce, well, $31 billion. So it's not an entirely inconsequential amount of purchasing, but the really important takeaway here is that nations around the world, central banks, state funds, they may be viewing silver as a monetary asset once again, and not just as an industrial metal. And that really is a major paradigm shift for silver. In fact, so much so that I think there's a possibility silver, which is still a very important industrial metal and actually growing in importance, as we move towards 5G and AI and smart grids and, electrification and all of these high-tech applications for silver are increasing the industrial consumption. As that occurs, if silver is remonetized, this could become the critical asset of the 21st century. If you think back throughout history, every century sort of has a critical asset, right? In the 19th century, it was coal. As the Industrial Revolution took off and steam power was driving everything, you needed coal, whether it be to run your navy or your industry, you needed to have that stuff. And then in the 20th century, that focus shifted to oil, right? We all know how important oil is. Wars have been fought over this stuff. As high-tech industrialization took place, as automobiles became commonplace, you needed lots of oil. Well, in this century, it could be that as you need, high-tech applications like Samsung, for example, announcing their new solid-state battery, which is going to revolutionize electric vehicles. And they're going to start mass-producing these things in 2027, only 3 years in the future. This uses a silver carbon material to extend the life of the battery, to make it charge very quickly. And, silver is going to be more and more important for a lot of these high-tech industries. I think there's a possibility this stuff could become the main strategic resource of the 21st century. But even if that doesn't take place, even if it is simply remonetized and these organizations like state funds and central banks start loading up on it as a reserve asset, you've seen what's happened with gold, right? The BRICS nations, central banks around the world, the Chinese, the Russians, in India, they're buying gold. It's driven the price of gold to new record all-time highs. Just today, gold touched very close to its previous record. It got as high as 26.85. I think it was pennies away from putting in a new record all-time intraday high. So, it's driven the price of gold to new nominal highs, although we haven't taken out the previous inflation-adjusted highs yet. So I think gold has further to run as well. But, if silver gets remonetized, you know how I mentioned that there's less silver above ground than there is gold. And the supply of silver is actually shrinking every year. Industry is consuming more of it than we are producing, and that's not going to change for a while. You would need to see much higher prices to incentivize enough silver production to get the silver market out of its deficit. We've been putting in 100 million, 200 million ounce deficits for the past 4 years. And again, the industrial use is accelerating. But imagine if these banks start chasing a very limited supply of above ground silver as a monetary asset. Well, the reason this is, kind of a warning to silver stackers is if that event takes place, if an announcement is made by the PBOC or by the Indian Central Bank or by maybe some collective BRICS organization that holds assets and reserves, or maybe even Western central banks, get wise and start trying to load up on this stuff, it's going to be an incredible shift in the way that the silver market functions. I mean, this stuff hasn't been a monetary metal for decades. And now if it starts being viewed as one, well, things are a lot different than before. Previously there were huge above ground silver stockpiles. The government had large silver stockpiles. Those have all been sold off now. Those are all gone. So if central banks and states begin to acquire silver as a monetary asset, as a reserve, it has the potential to drive the price to new record highs, not just in nominal terms, but in real terms. And previous inflation adjusted highs for silver are above $200 an ounce. So you could be talking triple digit silver in relatively short order. And so I really do think, and it's not financial advice or anything like that, but I think it's important that, whatever position you want to have in silver, that you get it soon. I know the price of silver is up significantly over the past year. It's up, I think, over 50% over the past 2 years. But still, it remains very undervalued relative to other assets. And look, I'm still stacking. I just picked up some more junk silver from SD Bullion, and I just wanted to get this video out there to let you know that if you start seeing announcements from other funds and other central banks that they are buying silver, then if you have plans to get your hands on some, you better act quickly. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay safe and happy stacking. Smart Silver Stacker, out.